does your crazy neighbor do to be labeled the crazy neighbor? My sister's street is one of those quiet suburban rows where everyone mostly keeps to themselves. The most dramatic thing that usually happens is someone forgetting to bring the bins in. She's lived there for years, knows most of her neighbors by name, and for the most part, it's peaceful. Except for the woman in the semi-detached next door. People just call her the one with the theories. The first time I heard about her was when my sister casually mentioned she'd been warned not to hang her washing out on Tuesdays because the air is worse then. I thought it was a joke. Then came the stories about her watching the street with binoculars, telling delivery drivers to knock twice for safety, and insisting the postman was part of a government survey. None of it ever really went beyond eccentric, until the day she called the police. It was a normal Saturday afternoon. My sister's kids, 7 and 9, were in the back garden playing with a football and some chalk. She'd been inside making tea, and I was sitting at the kitchen table chatting to her when we saw 2 uniformed officers walk up the path. She looked confused, but went to the door, wiping her hands on a tea towel. They asked if the children belonged to her. She said yes, thinking maybe one of them had accidentally hit a ball into the road or annoyed someone with the chalk. That's when the taller officer explained that they'd received a call from a neighbor saying the children were in danger and needed to be brought inside immediately. My sister's face went blank. Danger from what? She asked. The officer checked his notebook and said, radiation exposure from an active volcano. We both laughed before realizing he wasn't joking. According to the report, a volcano in Italy had erupted earlier that week, and our neighbor believed the ash and nuclear fallout were drifting toward the UK, putting anyone outdoors at risk. She had apparently called the non-emergency police line in a panic, insisting they intervene before the children became ill from the particles. The officers, to their credit, seemed slightly embarrassed to even be there. They explained they were obligated to respond to any call involving potential harm to children, but it was obvious they didn't think there was any real threat. My sister thanked them for checking and assured them she was aware of the news, but didn't believe her garden was about to become a radiation zone. After they left, she peeked through the blinds toward the neighbor's house. Sure enough, there she was, peering out from behind her curtains, watching the whole thing unfold like she was making sure the authorities had done their job. Later that day, the neighbor came over with a stack of printed articles, mostly conspiracy-laden blogs, about how volcanic ash can hide radiation and travel thousands of miles undetected. She said she didn't want to scare the kids, but thought my sister was uninformed about the dangers. My sister tried to politely end the conversation, but the woman lingered, pointing out signs like the wind direction and the metallic taste she claimed she could detect in the air. This wasn't the first time she'd tied local events to far-off disasters. A heat wave one summer led to her warning everyone to cover their windows with foil because the government was testing climate manipulation. When a water main burst down the street, she told people it was proof the reservoirs are contaminated from an earthquake in Turkey. Still, calling the police over an Italian volcano was a new level. My sister didn't confront her about it, partly because she knew it wouldn't change anything, and partly because she didn't want to escalate things. The kids now just refer to her as Volcano Lady, and when they're outside playing, they sometimes pretend to check the radiation levels with an old walkie-talkie they found in the garage. The neighborhood has learned to work around her eccentricities. People nod politely, let her hand out leaflets about invisible dangers, and ignore the more outlandish claims. But every so often, she'll do something that cements her reputation all over again. For my sister, the day she called the police over a distant volcano is the story that will always come to mind when someone mentions the crazy neighbor.